Iceland is a country that is in many parts very remote and in many ways still untouched.
It's a very beautiful place, and you realize it often after you spend time away from it and you come back, you know. You appreciate it more.
We are blessed with this incredible, pristine nature all around us. These elements of fire and volcanoes and the ice and the glaciers, it's these extremes. Maybe it makes the Icelandic people also a bit extreme.
For the last 10,000 years or so, we have had abundance of wild Atlantic salmon. People come from all over the world to visit Iceland because it is one of the few places left in the world that is still like that. But that's under threat now.
Iceland is one of the last frontiers for the Atlantic salmon to recover. Our historical roots go deep within our relationship with the salmon. If the salmon is lost, then we're not just losing our roots, we are losing our future. This is the Salmon Nation.
Thank you.
Is the hair okay?
Yeah. Final touch.
As far as I remember, the salmon industry in Norway really started and took off in the late 1970s and on to the 1980s, where it really took off in a way. In the beginning, it was a very small industry. It was nice, it was very idyllic. And they knew that in order to have good results, you needed to treat your animals well. Onwards, the fish farming industry in Norway really just started to grow and grow and grow. And they really grew into kind of international businesses, and all the time bigger and more expansive. So, in my opinion, that was the big shift when it comes to animal welfare and fish health. The fact that the farmed salmon look like they do today is of course the result of very selective breeding and intensive scientific research on all the factors that are important for making a good and big business. Norway is probably more than 15 or maybe 20 years ahead of Iceland when it comes to fish farming, because we started so early and we have made very many mistakes. Iceland is known for its pristine environment and clear, cold, nice water. And we know from long experience now that fish farming in open net pens is definitely polluting the fjords to a very high degree. And I would think it would be disaster for Iceland if the same should happen to Icelandic fjords as has happened to Norwegian fjords.
In 2019, I circumnavigated Iceland by sea kayak against the current, something that never been done before. It took me 103 days to go around Iceland, and my life has never been as simple as then. The only thing I had to think about was paddling, eating, sleeping, and look at the weather. There was something that changed inside me, and when I came back after my trip, I started to go out on my sea kayak and cleaning beaches and just pick up trash. And then one day I was paddling close to the pens in my hometown, and I saw a dead bird in a net. There's a net over the pens, and I decided to take a look. And managed to get some really bad-looking fishes, pictures of them. The more you dig into it, the more shit you will dig up, basically. A lot of dead salmon floating on the surface, missing head, the skin is gone. We were once on the East Coast, I was watching them for 1 hour, and I watched them pump up 7.5 tons of dead fish from one pen in 1 hour.
The salmon we have today is a very stressed and fragile individual. In the worst areas, it's up to 25% mortality, which equals something like 65 to 70 million individuals every year. That is a lot of animals. And remember that salmon, they are defined as husbandry animals. So they are our responsibility, and they are a part of the animal welfare law, actually. So they should be treated just like any other husbandry animal. Cows or sheep or horses or whatever. They should be exactly the same, but they aren't.
I started surfing here in Iceland when I was about 19 years old. Surfing just took over everything, kind of, in my life.
I've been down deep Texas, Mississippi State, hoping things might go my way. For every $100 I made, that stands a lot, man, just to take it away. Some might say I talk loud, see if I care. Unlike them, don't walk away from my fear. I busted bones, broken stones, look the devil in the eye. I hope it's gonna break this chain. Oh yeah, the devil's gonna set me free.
Yeah, the West Fjords, it's a very special area. I remember driving here and just seeing the most beautiful ocean in Iceland, you know, crystal clear, this white sand underneath, and it looked like driving along the Caribbean. It's so different from other parts of the country. When I first came here, like, I don't remember seeing almost any salmon farms. Then you started seeing like a little bit more, and then the last 4 years it's just been kind of wild to see. Like, part of the reasons why I fell in love with the place, you could free dive and find scallops and shellfish, and there's usually really good visibility, but it's crazy how much stuff comes from one farm like that, you know. It's just murky, you know, like. I think it is a little bit sad to put up a whole ecosystem as collateral. It was just on the news a week ago or something, you know, they found 2 relatively big holes on the pens in the next fjord over here. This was like big adult salmon, and of course they escaped. And, you know, they've been showing up in all over the rivers here, from this area all the way to the middle north of the country, you know, and they're finding fish every day.
Matvælastofnun hefur óskað eftir opinberri rannsókn á meintum brotum fiskeldisfyrirtækisins Arctic Sea Farm í Patreksfirði. 3 norskir sérfræðingar kafa þessa dagana eftir eldislaxi í þeim ám sem hann hefur fundist.
Eldislaxi sem kemur í netið landað, en þeim villta sleppt aftur út í. Engin veit nákvæmlega hve margir fiskar sluppu úr kvínni, það 3462. Alls eru þetta 344 meintir eða staðfestir eldislaxar, á 46 stöðum.
Yeah, well, you used the word catastrophe, but there's no scientific merit behind such a description. If you take all the factors into consideration, ocean-based salmon farming is very sustainable.
From one single fish farm, you produce 50 tons of fish shit every day, causing severe damage to our natural environment.
And also very important for the local communities.
This is creating a few jobs in some local small towns, I guess. There's some tax income, but most of the money, the profit from this is going elsewhere.
I think we can live with the wild salmon also in Iceland.
The wild salmon population is quite steadily declining. There is no doubt that the fish farming industry has a very heavy impact on this negative development.
Like we do in all the other jurisdictions in which we are operating.
Over the years, they have expanded to all the time new areas, and I think it's good reason to be skeptical to that, based on what we have seen happening in other countries.
It is getting awkward.
The reason that escapes from fish farms are so bad are that in Icelandic rivers you have the wild salmon stocks, and they have been adjusting to their natural environment for the last 10,000 years. They are all suited to their home rivers. Their genetic code depends entirely on them being able to survive in their natural environment. On the other hand, in the net pens you have farmed fish of a foreign origin. These are very different from the wild Icelandic salmon. These are fish that are originally coming from Norway, and they have been selectively bred for more than 50 years with a single purpose: to grow fat and grow big in the shortest possible time. These fish, when they escape, they swim up the rivers and they breed with the wild salmon. So effectively what happens is that you are dumbing down the genes of the wild fish. You're taking 10,000 years of evolution and you're mixing with genes that are not as capable as surviving in the wild. And when that happens again and again, you're dumbing down the genes to the point where the fish that are the offspring of these farmed salmon will not be able to survive. And that will be the end of wild salmon.
There are so many other aspects of this terrible industry that's bad for the environment. Leftovers of feed, pesticides, which they pour into the open sea to fight salmon lice. The salmon lice, the parasites, they go into the ocean also and affect the brown trout, the salmon, Arctic char. They are pumping huge amounts of microplastics into the sea. The feeding pipes, many kilometers on each location, are made out of plastics. The feed is pumped with air through the pipes. The pipes erode, so they're literally feeding the salmon with microplastics. Then they coat the net with copper oxide. Copper is a heavily poisonous heavy metal for the environment. It breaks off the nets, falls down into the seabed, and it accumulates there. It does not dissolve, so it's polluted for decades, if not hundreds of years. If you have production on land, if you release 2 kilos into the environment, you shut down. In the seabed industry, they are releasing 2 tons already a year in Norway.
So right after the news broke of the escape, myself and my friend Christine, we decided to go to the West Fjords and try and catch as many of these farmed Norwegian salmon as possible.
So now we're in Atla village. Just around the corner there are open net pens full of farmed salmon. And we'll be fishing in Sundansá, a river that's not far away from these pens.
Even though I'm very up to date on what's happening, it's really different to see it in real life. looking down on those small rivers and seeing plenty of farmed salmon in our natural rivers, it gets me really mad.
Yeah, that looks like a farmed salmon, to be honest. He's not happy, but it's kind of the same feeling that I have. I'm not happy about having him in this river.
Yes. Of course, every farmed salmon that we catch is good news, but the problem is so big that it seems it doesn't really matter in the big picture. But just sitting at home doing nothing feels so wrong, so it's maybe more for the soul to go catch them and try to help. We are seeing that we are uniting as like a big family here, fly fishermen all around Iceland. We are all standing together and trying to make a difference, doing everything we can, and everybody's really angry and everybody wants to do something about it. And you can really see the change because a lot of people have been talking about this for many, many years, but now you can really see a difference. People are fed up and they want answers now, and they want to take it out of the fjords and keep the nature and keep the salmon safe.
Iceland is and has been for decades one of the most popular fishing destinations in the world. What this has done, it has created an amazing industry and livelihood for the rural communities of Iceland. There are 2,250 farms in Iceland that depend on direct income from recreational salmon fishing in rivers. This is not only the farmers that depend on this, but it's also guides, drivers, chefs, servers in the lodges. All these people depend on healthy salmon populations for their income. The main argument of the open net pen salmon farming industry is that they are creating jobs. They are giving life back to rural communities. But essentially they are creating a handful of jobs, not many, I may add, but they are risking destroying the jobs of all those others that depend on the healthy salmon stocks. So you're creating a few jobs at the expense of many.
My personal connection with the salmon is, of course, through my father, who is a fish biologist. And so he taught us about salmon, about the rivers, how everything worked. So I was very privileged. I had this door into nature through my father.
Jóhannes Sturluson heiti ég. Ég líffræðingur og hef starfað rannsóknir á fiskum í vel á 40 ára. Ég reyndi að telja fjölskyldunum mína nær mér heldur fiska, þá fiskar mitt daglega brauð. Og ég að rannsaka fiska til þess að verja hagsmuni fiska meðal annars, en líka til að opna sýn á hvernig líf þeirra
I was giving Ari the horrible news that I'm vegan. It was a hard news to break at the beginning of a meal.
Ég komi hérna í 9 ár til að rannsaka laxinn og það sem við gerum hérna árlega að mæta hérna þegar laxinn að fara að hrygna. Hann búinn að ganga sumarið í árnar og haustið og í byrjun vetra þá fer hann að hrygna og þá erum við mættir hérna. Förum ána nóttina með ljósum og háfum, veiðum alla fiskana sem að hrygna til að skoða þetta laxarnir af heimastofnunum eða þetta eldislaxar, svo skráum við það niður.
It's a farmed salmon. You see how silvery he is compared to the rest? The fins are roast, and here we have from sea lice. So this is the problem we are dealing with. The small female we captured earlier on, we tag them and release, but the found one, we just kill them and take samples and on we go. So we try to remove every single found salmon we meet. We can't cope with all of them because they are running into the river in peculiar times, late in the season.
They are pollution in itself. Man-made pollution.
Tragic.
We came in at 8:30, been out all night, caught an enormous amount of farm salmon. We never caught so many before. 21, so a lot more than the wild ones, at least in the upper part.
Yeah, total disaster, and we haven't thought it through. It has never been like this, and it's a final warning that either people do something to change this or this is the end.
We can always look at history through different perspectives. And we can see just through history that there has been this very, very tight bond between Icelanders and the salmon. You can look at the Icelandic sagas, you can look at the folk tales, you can look at the names of the rivers, the valleys. And if the salmon has a rich place in history and in our language, in our nature, just how we name things, it must mean that it has a significance, which it does.
The salmon rivers are a part of Icelandic identity. And if that disappears by stupid and very intensive operations, as it has done in many parts of Norway, I think it's a real disaster.
I think the cost is just too much, you know, like we're sacrificing too much and we're just like opening our arms and just, yeah, come here, like use the land, use the sea.
And what people don't understand that every river has their certain kind of stock. It's like every river has their own historical salmon there that's built in a certain way. And this is completely destruction of every river, of every stocks. And that is why, yes, keep them out of our waters. But there's not any discussion about, wait a minute, we can stop this. I mean, has the world gone mad? We can stop this. There's nobody benefiting from it here in Iceland. This is ridiculous. Our nature is dying.
We are just so greedy. All these animals that have the same right as we do. We are not gods.
Iceland failed in creating some good, sustainable future for the small villages, and it's the saddest story in Iceland right now. A huge company with a lot of wealth comes in and takes our beautiful nature, harms it, and all they're driven by is money. It's not because they have this great responsibility of saving our communities. We all know that they have already shown that they have no community responsibility. It's so important for all communities to know that they have power within them. If they feel that the way it's been done or that they don't want something for their community, that they have the power to stand up and say no.
So we're meeting here to protest the open net fish farming.
Open net farming in Icelandic fjords are something that the Icelandic nation is not gonna tolerate anymore.
We want to protect our nature, we want to let our kids see the protected nature, and we want to be proud of it.
I want our government to know that they are playing with Icelandic nature, and I want them to realize how fragile this is.
Listen to the people, look at the data, look at everything that's happening, and stop this industry now.
Nature. It's the most important thing we have here on this planet.
If the government closes this industry now, the nature is so resilient, it will heal. The salmon will clean out the hybrids from the farmed salmon, and it will go strong again. But the time is running out fast.
If Iceland makes the right decision and bans this polluting industry and saves its wild salmon, then that inspires hope for other countries. People can look to here and see that this is actually possible.
Today we are in front of Parliament and we are giving back the escaped farmed salmon that have been swimming up its Icelandic rivers, and it's the authorities of Iceland that have allowed this to happen, so we're giving it back to the authorities.
Follow your heart, dear politicians. Stop this nonsense. For Iceland, for the world, for the future, for the wildlife, for the environment, because that is what is right. What we feel in our hearts, that's what's right.
Your mouth floats above my bed at night, my own, a private moon.